Hello and welcome back to Lorehammer. You know who it is. It's your boy Gerald, and I'm joined by Jax Rad Curze. Welcome to the show, everybody.
How's it going? Can't wait to talk about Curse.
I think there's a specific reason you have been brought in, and what a birthday present for you, isn't it?
Yep. For 4 years, this is all I've ever wanted from Lorehammer. And now it's happening.
So, to those who don't know in the chat, our good buddy Jax here has had a birthday recently. We won't discuss his age, but let's wish everybody a merry, happy birthmas.
Very happy birthmas, Jax.
And also joining us tonight is the great and powerful the butcher, Bro Diddley.
It is I, the great and powerful Bro Diddley. Good to be back. I've been absent for a few episodes, but good to be back on this Wednesday train with you guys.
I know, I missed you, buddy. Where have you been?
Mark kicked me into the depths of the Eye of Terror, and I've just been clawing my way back. Just been clawing. Fighting demons, my dude.
Sent you on his own little doom mission, hasn't he?
Exactly. My doom mission to complete my hobby sanctuary. There we go, in the Eye of Terror.
And it is a glorious thing to behold. If you are not seeing this in the chat, first of all, come on down to the live stream. This is an awesome hobby room that Bro Diddley has set up.
Well, thank you.
Some of you are wondering, where is Mark? Well, the next phase of the Lorehammer Heresy is underway, and Mark had to be sent out to manage the Panama way and decided to leave and go get milk and never come back. So he's left us, the rest of us, to just kind of, But enough about that. So we got a very special episode for you tonight. This is the continuation of Konrad Curze, who is hyped. Show it to me in the comments, everybody. And of course, as is tradition with every Primarch episode, I have a mini to show everyone.
Oh.
And he's doing his little Batman look.
Now this is why everybody needs to pay for Patreon to see this majestic model.
I was actually kind of proud of this one. It's like the red really came out nice.
It's a great looking model, man. Like, that's sick. That's amazing.
I'm glad I got him when I did, because I've looked on Etsy and I've tried to look for the site that I got him from. It has since been shut down by GW, most likely, and I cannot find that exact model again. So I was really lucky to get him when I did.
Yeah, it's a hard one when you go third party.
Yep, that's the danger of third party. But before we get into Konrad Curze, we got a few housekeeping stuff. Jax, you have things to say about our lovely little Discord?
Well, it's got stuff. We are in the chat pretty often. Come swing by and say hi if you want. It's completely free. You get to talk to me, the Curse fan himself, and possibly other hosts. Yeah, just come to the Discord, chill out, play games, and have a good time.
And hey, if you like what you're seeing on the Discord, if you like what you're hearing on the show, always feel free to give us a nice support on the Patreon and join the Imperial Tithe, because God Emperor Mark wants you, Icarus, to join the Imperial Tithe once again. So that's always a fun thing. For just $2.50 per month, you get access to ad-free versions on Spotify with the proper link. Make sure you got the correct link, because that was a bit of an issue before. And then for $5, you get access to the live stream. And as we talk about the live stream, I'm going to hand it over to Bro Diddley.
Absolutely. And if you join the Patreon, you do get access to the live stream. Come on down and hop into our comment section, into the chat there. We love interacting with you guys. We're going to highlight comments. We're going to react to them live as they come in, all that kind of stuff. We're not going to highlight them this episode because we can't do that without Mark here, and that's a rough one. But most of the time, that's what we do. So, but yeah, it's a good one, and we also usually have call-in guests at the end of the episodes. Again, without Mark being here, we don't have access to that, but we will do that on most episodes.
And one last bit of housekeeping in case you haven't heard or noticed on the Discord, we have the Liber Malleus event going on. We're now running a silent auction for, I think it's the Chaos Champion and the Chosen for the
Yeah.
Unbound portion of the Liber Malleus chapters. So,
Do you want me
Brody,
to
did you
do the
want to?
full? Oh yeah, I'll
Yes,
do the full thing. I'll do the full
Yes.
bit.
yes, please, yes, please.
All right. The unbound warband of the Liber Malleus, though few in number, have formed a brutal and efficient hierarchy forged in the fires of the warp and bound by shared betrayal. At its apex stand two Chaos Lords, twin architects of the chapter's fall, each commanding with equal authority but driven by different visions of ascension. Beneath them fights a singular champion, the warband's enforcer and duelist supreme, whose blade has silenced both loyalist and rival traitor alike. Clad in adamantium Terminator armor, he is the will of the Lords manifest. And
Fantastic, good sir.
that is May 13th to 19th for the Chaos Champion Adamantium Clad Terminator and Chaos Chosen Adamantium Clad Terminator.
And how might you do that, you might
So
ask?
cool.
Well, the first and easiest thing is just email lorehammerpodcast@gmail.com. Come on over to our Discord, and Mark has all the instructions set up right there. Lovely little Excel doc, and just click on the link below. Okay, I think that's all the housekeeping stuff. Is there anything else that we need to go over before we dive into the Night Hunter?
Let's dive right into him.
I need to quickly sharpen my flensing blades.
Beautiful, beautiful. And
Besides
Purge.
that, we're good.
All right. And to answer your question, Purge, I don't know if Mark's going to be coming back. So I think he's actually serving as a flesh cape for I don't know, either myself, the Butcher Bro Diddley might have something to do with it, with Flinty Knives, and then we have our good
Yes.
man, Mr. Curze, right here, Jax. So it's a mystery. Oh, he's spoiled it himself. He's chilling in the chat. And he does have a very sick baby. So everyone also wish Mark's baby a healthy recovery. Okay. Konrad Curze, the Night Haunter. We're going to do we're going to start things off with a quick little recap. You know how this goes with Primarch episodes. Talk a little about Nostromo, his tenure as the Night Haunter, how he did in the Great Crusade, and then what he did with the Night Lords. And then we're going to get into some really spicy stuff with the death of Nostromo. And as you know, or as most folks know who know anything about Primarch lore, most of their home worlds don't have a good time, especially during the heresy. Speaking of heresies, we got the Horus Heresy and what all Konrad was up to in there. And I'm sure Jax has a few jokes and references he is very happy to make, and we will get to that later.
Oh, yeah.
And then there is a little bit of he does have a little bit going on with the Great Scouring after the heresy, and well, we'll get into that. It's very interesting stuff. And then, of course, his appearance and personality, his war gear, and any kind of lessons we can kind of glean from it. So I don't know about y'all, but I am ready to get this show on the road, and we'll start with ourselves a little recap. Nostromo. Before the Horus Heresy, Nostromo was a dark, oppressive world plagued by corruption and decay. A toxic industrial planet, it was ruled by crime, violence, and a constant state of fear. The people of Nostromo lived in perpetual darkness due to the planet's thick, polluted atmosphere, which blocked out the sun. Lawlessness reigned and corruption seeped into every corner of society. The planet's brutal rulers, gangs, and warring factions thrived on terror, keeping the populace subjugated through fear and manipulation. It was in this environment that Konrad Curze, later known as the Night Haunter, was raised. His harrowing experiences on the planet shaped his view of justice, punishment, and the inherent corruption of humanity.
So cool. See, he's not a bad guy. He just tries to fix everything.
He just does it in a very bad way, though.
Yeah. I want to fix this thing with knives.
But when you live on a planet that's essentially one big Gotham City, who can blame the guy?
Yeah. Honestly, when I like first got into 40K and somebody told me about like who Konrad Curze was, I was like, so he's Batman, but the Joker combined? And they're like, well, kind of. And I was like, okay.
He's
Oh
Batman,
man.
but he was never showed love.
Oh no.
He was just the orphan, none of the
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne child. Oh no.
So are we saying that Alfred was the linchpin for all of this?
Also the
Well,
billions and billions of
clearly.
dollars, but yes, also
And
Alfred.
the billions of dollars.
Let me wipe my tears with
Right.
$100 bills real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Just the oh no, Pat's eyes down with money.
Oh yeah, right, Purge. The Batman that laughs, that actually is a DC character which is Batman and Joker combined. Very interesting character if you get to read about him. Good call, Purge.
Love it. All right. And speaking of Batman, or as what we call him in 40K, the Night Haunter. Konrad Curze, known as Night Haunter, was a figure of darkness and dread long before he became a Primarch of the Night Lords. His early life on Nostromo was marked by visions of a brutal future filled with decay and destruction. He came to see himself as the embodiment of vengeance and retribution, punishing the wicked before they could commit their crimes. His prophetic abilities were both a gift and a curse, and they drove him to take matters into his own hands. Night Haunter's ruthless approach to justice earned him the loyalty of his legion, but also the disdain of many of his fellow Primarchs and the Emperor himself. His ability to strike terror into the hearts of his enemies became his defining characteristic, and he waged war with the belief that only through fear could society be cleansed.
Ooh.
I love
Ooh.
the seriousness in which like society needs to be cleansed. Like, but also the whole like you
Society,
haven't done
Batman.
anything wrong yet, but I'm gonna make sure you never do. Like what?
Can't do anything wrong if you become a flesh hood.
To be fair, if you steal a piece of bread once, you're done. Like, can't have that.
Yeah. Doesn't pay income tax. Sorry, I have to skin you alive now. Like, oh no.
I mean, even trying to self terminate is a crime in his eyes. That's punishable by death. So
So you think you're gonna kill yourself? No, no, that's my job. Oh no.
I love that story so much, where it was a girl who had enough of life, and then you see this 11-foot tall guy on the window being like, "Don't do that. You have importance." And then she puts down the knife, and then he takes out his knives, and it's like, "You're done messed up though."
I like
classic.
what Purge said. His early arc reminds me of a Vlad the Impaler. A little bit, yeah. Like I could see that for sure.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's all for a good
From a historic
purpose.
yeah, from a historical perspective, this is coming from Purge. Vlad did some twisted shit, but it stopped the Ottoman invasion into Europe. So
This is true.
eh, yeah. And Jax, what is the thing that you like to say about our good boy Kurz here?
There's a lot of things, but ends justify the means, or
What's the one thing that you like to say?
Ave Dominis Nux.
That's not the one I'm thinking of, but close enough. You'll get to it. You'll get to it. So, Great Crusade. He was discovered by the Emperor, and he was reunited with his legion to participate in the Great Crusade. I would like to say right now, just like the whole way that the Night Lords and Conrad Curse operates just does not seem like a formation army type of situation, like you would the Ultramarines or the Dark Angels or the Imperial Fist. It's just very much like small scale spec ops, like terror tactics, basically. Very different.
Yeah, it feels
Uh,
like these are the type of guys you drop in on drop pods. And as like the morally human who's like supposed to be a soldier for the Great Crusade, you just chillax on your bench with like a drink in your hand until you hear, oh, the planet surrendered after 5 days. Why? Don't worry about it.
It's like, man, this is gonna be a grueling campaign, and it's like, wait, they're sending the Night Lords over there. Okay, guys, that eats. They got this. They got this. We're good. Okay. During the Great Crusade, Konrad Curze and the Night Lords played a significant role in the Emperor's campaign to unify humanity across the stars. The Night Lords were tasked with bringing order to worlds plagued by crime, corruption, and chaos. However, unlike other legions, Curze's methods were brutal and merciless, relying heavily on terror tactics and preemptive punishment. His visions of the future, where corruption and rebellion would rise, drove him to take extreme measures, often leaving a trail of devastation behind him. While the Night Lords were effective in their mission, their brutal approach to justice left them at odds with the Emperor's more measured vision for the Imperium. The Night Lords' actions during the Great Crusade foreshadowed the violent path they would follow during the heresy.
This is why I love the Night Lords, even during the Great Crusade. It's mentioned that during the Great Crusade, they conquered, while everybody like conquered planets, the Night Lords did it with the least amount of kills, which makes 100% sense, but also makes chaos on these planets just null and void. Because when you could kill like a governor of a planet in a way and televise it to the rest of the planet to make them all surrender, you don't have to shed more blood. You don't have to indulge in excess of killing people. You don't have to resort to like many tactics like Mortarion sons would with plagues and all that. And you just can just conquer a planet in the most horrific way. Yeah, but like kill like 5 people.
And that right there is the wording I was looking for. That he did it with like the least destruction or the least casualties.
Mhm.
I remember reading
I
a
mean,
book
the
and
whole
it had Vulcan in it, and it was basically Vulcan would show up to a city on a planet that him and Kurz were on, and he would show up to the city. The city would already be conquered, and he would walk in, and there would just be like innocent people that were killed, and and all the soldiers had dropped down their weapons, basically.
Mm.
yeah, it's got to be something to be said when they don't even have to kill people. All you have to do is like see a 9 foot tall super soldier with bat wings on his helmet and a skull on his face and like bones draped around his body, covered in like your grandfather's skin, and he'd be like, you know what? I'm not gonna fight that.
Yep.
I mean, that would be the typical reaction of seeing any 8 foot tall super soldier in power armor that could just like crush your skull with a punch. But
Like imagine the 100 men versus gorilla, but the gorilla is draped in skin, probably has like bones of your relatives all over you, and is saying, "Come at me, bro."
it's funny you say that because the Eldar describe Space Marines as a gorilla with a shotgun.
Hashtag not wrong.
Uh,
Love it.
anyway, the Night Lords. The Night Lords were a legion defined by fear, brutality, and an unwavering commitment to justice, as interpreted by their Primarch, Konrad Curze. Composed largely of murderers and criminals from Nostromo, the Legion embraced terror as their primary weapon, using fear to subdue and control their enemies. The Night Lord's tactics were often seen as excessive, with Curze's visions of future influencing his decisions. They did not seek to conquer for glory, but to bring about a twisted form of order through punishment and vengeance. During the Great Crusade, their methods set them apart from the other legions, and their reputation for cruelty grew. As the war progressed, their descent into madness mirrored that of their Primarch, and they would have eventually become one of the traitor legions during the Horus Heresy, cementing their role as the Emperor's most feared and hated enemies. What a title.
Nice. Very nice.
It's something to be said when the Sons of Horus show up and it's like, oh no, these guys. Shh. And it's another thing to be said when the Night Lords come and, oh no, it's the Night Lords. Everybody run.
Everybody run! Everybody hide!
Ave Dominus Nox, bitch.
Yeah, exactly. I just imagine like the hide your kids, hide your wife. Like the night lords are coming.
They're the Key and Peele like skit where it's like, oh, I've got a sniper on you. Oh yeah, I kidnapped your wife and kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I love the Key and Peele skits.
Good
Purge makes an
times.
interesting comment. He says terror tactics are a key element in any military. It's just not publicly acknowledged. We just call it black ops, and the outcome collateral damage.
Not wrong, man. Not wrong.
Not wrong. Not
Just
wrong.
yeah. Oh boy.
But unfortunately, their shenanigans with terror tactics leads to a very bad time for Nostromo. And we're just going to call it the death of Nostromo. And I actually got a quote by Konrad Curze himself. I am half tempted to use the overly exaggerated Batman voice, but I think that would do him a disservice, so I'm going to do something different. At times, in raptures of pain, I saw what was to occur laid out before me. In these waking dreams, I took countless lives with my bare hands, heads taken as trophies. I died again and again at the hands of my father. My sons butchered and maimed their brothers. My name was to become synonymous with dread. But most vividly, and with most frequency, I saw my world pierced by a lance of purest light, splitting it, shattering it into dust. Konrad Curze's revelation revealed from his personal journals, The Dark, Volume 2.
Set of journals to get your hands on.
Really?
Yeah, you guys mentioned
Mr.
the first episode, but he keeps a journal called The Dark. That is the most edgiest thing ever.
The fact that Curze kept a journal, period, is
Right?
something.
I have to record my moodiness. I just need everybody to know I want justice.
I wonder if he just like takes one of his flesh hoods and he just starts to scribble like his journal entries on it. It's like year 398 and 30. I flayed another one. This guy, he did some crime.
He did some crime.
He stole a quarter from the wishing well.
He said some really bad things during the war. It's plain Shane. It's like he was at therapy once, and that was the only note he took and ignored the rest. To keep a journal.
Just you need to start
Well,
journaling these things. Yes, record keeping is key.
well, he went to therapy. He skinned the therapist, and then that's what he made the journal out of.
There we go.
Yeah, he skinned the therapist. You're a crook. Anybody can be a therapist.
I want my $50 back.
Fraud. I want a refund.
Right?
And now what am I gonna go do? Fight crime. Konrad Curze and his never-ending battle with throat cancer.
I smoke 13 cigarettes a day, Gilliman. You wouldn't understand.
Where are they? Nostromo's death in 984 M30 marked the tragic end of the Night Lord's honor, as if they had any to begin with, a harrowing culmination
Well.
that sealed their fate forever. I can feel Jax just staring daggers at me right now by saying
Yeah.
that. Long before Istvan and the Scouring of Prospero, Konrad Curze's descent into madness began after the brutal Chiraut compliance campaign. Curze's violent methods brought a breaking point with Rogel Dorn, whose rigid discipline clashed with Curze's brutal tactics. As the campaign ended, Curze's mind, already plagued by prophetic visions of doom, became further strained by the fall of the Night Lord of Nostromo in a chaos. Isolated and paranoid, Curze confided in no one, growing increasingly detached from his brothers. After a violent confrontation with Dorn, Curze broke free and, in a final act of defiance, returned to Nostromo. There, he unleashed the Night Lord's fury, bombarding the planet until it collapsed into nothingness. The destruction of Nostromo was the final nail in the Night Lord's coffin, severing their last connection to any sense of restraint. Curze's justification for the act was that his homeworld had fallen into corruption, and that he merely enforced the same terror that the Imperium had used to bring order. However, this act marked the beginning of his fall into madness, either resulting in his exile or leading to his eventual return to Terra. By the dawn of the 31st millennium, Curze's fall was seen not as a tragic mistake, but the inevitable consequence of a mind broken by a galaxy that demanded nothing less than madness.
Hey, first of all, the Night Lords still have honor. Have you read the book? And second of all, I mean, to be honest, when I could always imagine this being like Konrad Curze blows up a planet, everybody, why would you do this? Curze like, you'll do it in like 10K years anyway.
Exterminatus, it's gonna be big.
Now, my question for you, Jax, have you read the book? I don't find it very honorable.
Well, they have their moments.
They have their moments.
A Night Lord can be honorable. All of them at once, not so
Oh, yeah.
much.
That is not a group activity for them.
No. They kind of skipped that part in the team building exercises when they were reunited with Curze.
Right? Oh man, it's good times all around there. Well, speaking of the final nail in the coffin, sorry, go ahead, Jax.
Uh, uh, no, I was just about to say, one of the few times they do something actually like semi nice in the book where they're like, I don't hate you, brother. I can tolerate you. It's like, oh, this character development.
That's sweet, sweet character development. So proud.
See, this can be
I
deep,
mean, gotta start
guys.
somewhere.
Right. Speaking of the final nail in the coffin, though, for these guys, the Horus Heresy, the betrayal, hatred is never so sweet, and vengeance never so pleasurable than when it is applied to one once loved. A Nostroman proverb. That's dark. Like it's
Damn.
just it's only good when it's to someone you love. Just ew.
Oh, jeez.
I can imagine in
Right.
school in the Stramo, it's like, okay, learn kids, what's the proverb you learned today? Hatred is never so sweet. And they just continue the whole thing. It's like very good, kids.
Very good, kids. Oh man. Bad, bad, bad all along. All right. History has long cast Konrad Curze, the Night Haunter, as the embodiment of evil among the traitor Primarchs. His bloodthirst and twisted love of torture were known to all before the Horus Heresy began, but his darker actions were far more than whispers between his brothers. The decimation of Nostromo, his father's ruined world, and the savage assault on his brother Rogel Dorn, which led to his imprisonment on Cherout, were but a prelude to the profound tragedy that was Curze. His true curse lay not in his actions, but in the fact that he was born too deeply of his father's fractured will. Much like his brothers, Kurz inherited a fragment of the Emperor's psychic gifts, a shard of sight into possible futures. Yet, unlike the Emperor, whose visions were endless and all encompassing, Kurz saw only a singular, suffocating thread, a path of inevitable ruin, blood, and death that led him further into madness. Every victory, every step away from the horrors of his youth in the wretched streets of Nostromo, was marred by the unyielding vision of the fate that awaited him and his legion. His mind, tortured by these inescapable prophecies, slowly fractured. In the final days of the Great Crusade, Kurz stood on the precipice of madness. What drove him to join Horus in rebellion against the Emperor remains an enigma, whether it was an attempt to escape the grim future he had seen, or a desperate need to drown his torment in slaughter. What is certain, however, is that when he marched into the Thramas crusade, he was already a shadow of the warrior and leader he had once been. The soul of Curze, long battered by the weight of his visions, a ruined past had withered, and as he sought a new purpose, so too did his legion. Now left to wander without their shattered father's guidance, some clung to the memories of the Great Crusade, when they fought as brothers striving to build a better realm. Others, broken and consumed by their own dark natures, sought only the destruction of all they touched, an empire of blood and suffering. As Kurz fell deeper into the abyss of his own dark thoughts, it was left to his sons to chart the Legion's future. Some wishing to restore their father to his former glory, others wishing to push him further into madness. The war for the Thramas sector, which would burn the eastern fringe during the Horus Heresy, became more than a battle for a world. It was the war for the soul of the Night Lord's Legion and the twisted fate of their Primarch.
Oof.
Big oof.
Just oof.
Yeah. One quick thing is that Konrad Curze always wanted to make the future happen, I think, around this point, because he saw what happened to Nostromo, like that couldn't be stopped. He saw what happened other times, that couldn't be stopped. So I think eventually he came to like the snapping point of like Dune, where if it's gotta happen, if I see it, it's gotta happen. If it and as he continues this streak, if something doesn't happen the way he wants to, he has to make it happen because otherwise everything he did would be for naught. He'd just be a massive hypocrite. So I feel like that's like one of the driving factors.
Well, I think that partly comes too from like he has that foresight just like Sanguinius, but he always sees the worst outcome possible, or I'll rephrase it. He chooses to see the worst outcome possible, because I think there was a story, and this might have been covered in the Origins episode, where he sees a kid, and he has this future of this kid stabbing him with a knife. So he preemptively just goes ahead to or then he sees another version where the kid doesn't have a knife, where he's trying to actually help him out. Well, he preemptively basically kills the kid, and just to finds out, oh, the kid never had a knife on him. So he saw both versions of how that future would go, but he chose to act on the worst version that could have happened.
It's like also with because one like the biggest things of his story in the Horus Heresy, that's kind of a little minor because it was like in one book and then never like touch up on again, was that he saw Sanguinius's death. He saw Sanguinius win and he saw Sanguinius dying. Like as you said, he chose the worst of these two, but he knew Sanguinius had to end up on this vengeful spirit on the bridge of the vengeful spirit, and he had to fight Horus, and he believed he was going to die there. So when Sanguinius does some like crazy shit into the warp to fight a demon, Conrad Curse loses his mind and is like, he can't die, he can't die, not now. And then Sanguinius is alive, and Curse is like, oh yeah, I knew it all along. Like, fuck.
Yeah. It's one of those two things where, like, when you look at Conrad Curze and Sanguinius, I think they're kind of the two most similar. I think they're actual mirrors of each other, right? Like one ruled a lawless planet by incorporating artistry and love and like kind of like and using trust to like bring people up to things, which is what Sanguinius did. And Kurz did the exact opposite and used fear and used all these different things that are gonna put him in the loony bin. And they both were able to have visions, and they both saw the mirror of it. Sanguinius saw the good in a lot of these things, and Kurz saw a lot of the bad in a lot of these things. And so they are a mirror of each other in a way, a good and a light version of the same thing. One has bat wings, not physically, but is like his legion symbol, and one is angelic wings, right? Like it's very much two halves of the same coin.
One uses blood, one uses skin. I mean,
Basically, just put the skin over top of the blood and you're fine. You got a whole
Yeah,
human again.
it puts the blood on its skin, or else it gets the curse again.
It puts the blood on the skin. Oh no.
Or else it gets. But I had a whole tangent, but it kind of escaped me. Curse my blonde roots. I'm also enjoying this little chat that Purge has going on in the comments, but we'll get to that in just a second. Jax, take it over with the dark future.
acceptance of a dark future. Another quote from Curze himself, probably from his journal. I have seen darkness, witnessed it in my dreams. I am standing on the edge of the chasm. There is no escaping it. I know my fate, for it is the future, and nothing can prevent it coming to pass. So I step off and welcome the dark. Konrad Curze, the Night Hunter. Ooh. By the close of the Great Crusade, the Night Lords had set themselves upon a grim path, a path that led, inevitably, to their destruction. Its origin lay in the distant halls of Terra and their emperor's cryptic designs, but it would find its bitter conclusion amid the dying stars of the eastern fringe. As fitting for a legion so steeped in infamy and terror, they did not accept their doom meekly. They would not meet their end without a final blood-drenched struggle, probably with skin on top. In the chaos of the Horus Heresy, the first signs of their fate appeared, heralded by Konrad Curze himself. The Legion, driven by a desperate need to sever the curse of the Primarch, turned inward in a frenzy of violence. This, however, was not the end foretold in the cursed dreams of the Night Hunter, only a precursor to a far greater horror. The Night Lords, in their fury, chose to lash out at the wrong foes, blaming an imagined corruption within their ranks as if it had been inflicted from without. The true plague that had always dwelled within them was far more intimate, more insidious. It had been planted by the Emperor himself, a curse born of their deepest purpose, a seed sown into the heart of the Legion. That curse was Konrad Curze himself, a Primarch who had inherited but a fractured shard of foresight from his father. While the Emperor glimpsed countless futures, Curze was cursed to only see one, a future of ruin, death, and madness. No matter how far he rose from the horrors of his youth on Nostromo, his vision never wavered. The future he saw was inevitable, immutable, and it drove him towards despair, towards madness. Once Curze had fought against his fate, believing he could change the course of his destiny through bloodshed, through sacrifice. He hoped that his violent actions would shift the future, clearing the dark dreams that haunted him. But even as the Emperor's grand design was shattered by Horus, Curze's vision remained unchanged. A relentless, suffocating curse. The darkness of his future would never lift, and it shattered his spirit. By the time of the Thramis Crusade, Curze had embraced his doom, his mind consumed by the bleak truth he had uncovered. The Emperor's rejection of his methods, Curze had used to protect humanity, drove him to join Horus in rebellion. When the War Master treachery ignited the fires of civil war, Curze threw himself into the campaign of terror, unleashing his most violent instincts upon a galaxy already torn asunder. The Night Lords' participation in the Battle of Isfahan III shocked many, for they had long been seen as a force on the fringes, their own brand of terror kept in check by the Greater War. But the desperate times bred strange allegiances, and the Night Lords, too, were drawn into the madness. Yet, in truth, the Night Lords had never fully severed their ties with the Great Crusade, and their desire for retribution, once a tool for justice, had warped them into the very traitors that they hunted. Freed from any allegiance but their own thirst for vengeance, the Night Lords waged a campaign of terror across the galaxy, a campaign that endures in whispers and legends. They would later partake in the Siege of Terra, but it was their blood-soaked rampage through Eastern Fringe in the aftermath of Horus's death that left the galaxy gasping for breath, the echoes of their horror resounding long after the heresy's end. In the wake of the heresy, Curze and his legion became creatures of pure terror, killing for the sake of cruelty, leaving devastation in their wake. The Night Hunter himself began to transform, his once noble, honorable form twisting into that of a dreadful predator. Many believe that it was during this dark period that Curze began to listen to the whispers of chaos, drawn into the dark embrace of forces that mirrored his own inner despair. The Night Lord's campaigns became increasingly senseless, mere exercises in destruction. No longer did they fight for the Emperor's vision. Instead, they fought for death, for terror, for fear. The Emperor, horrified by their descent into madness, ordered Curze and his legion to return to Terra to answer for their crimes. But before they could reach the throne world, fate intervened once more. Konrad Curze did not fall during the Horus Heresy, nor did he ascend to demonhood, as so many others had. Instead, he met the end of his hands of Mshen, whatever, an assassin from the Calidus Temple, on the planet Sugalsa, where the Salsa, after the remnants of the Night Lords had constructed a fortress after the fall of Nostromo. Curze's death, however, had been foretold, for throughout his life he had been haunted by prophetic visions. His last vision revealed his own assassination, a death that he did not seek to avoid. It is believed that he allowed it to happen, an act of martyrdom meant to show the Emperor that he too stood firm in his beliefs. Curze did not halt the Night Lords. His acceptance of fate, his final victory over his own torment, became the grim, guiding principle for his legion. They did not mourn their Primarch's passing. They simply continued their work, spraying terror and fear across the stars. Though they paid lip services to chaos, their true allegiance lay in the twisted sense of justice, a justice wrought in blood, pain, and death. The Night Lords, like their fallen Primarch, had long since abandoned the very light they sought out in the first place.
Oof.
Ooh, baby.
One big oof.
More oofs. Big bada boom oof.
Night Lords, the Legion of Oofs.
Oof. I mean, this makes me think of that. This makes me think of that meme of Kurz and all of his Night Lords, and it's like the start of the Horus Heresy. Hey guys, we're switching sides. We're evil now, and then like all the Night Lords are like, wait a second, evil now? We were never good to begin with.
What do you mean? What do you mean now?
What do you mean now?
What is this now portion? Because I've just been doing me.
They turn away from like flaying someone like now.
Right? Oh man. Something that like always confused me was like he could see his death, and like Sanguinius saw his own death as well, but he knew it was being done for an honorable reason and that it would spur on victory in the end. Fergus is just like, kill me, man. I don't care. I got nothing to live for anymore. Like it's kind of like it seemed very pointless in a way.
In a way, it's very tragic as well. Like,
It is, and that's the thing. Like it's tragic, and but it feels tragic for not the right reasons.
mhm.
If there is right reasons, I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to think on it.
The way I see it is that he lived his whole life for a purpose, like this one big purpose of making the galaxy super orderly, super no crime, no chaos. That child over there, nothing bad will happen to it in the future. But then at the end of the heresy, it just ends up like he's one of the big players at this point. Like Ferris was dead, Sanguinius was dead, the Emperor was not dead, Malcador was dead, Gilliman, I don't think he was in stasis yet, but he was about to be. Like Alfarius was dead as well. I forgot about that. Horus was dead. Probably should have remembered that one. All these big players were dead. It was up to all these other traitor Primarchs who were fractured, who were missing Horus, to keep on fighting the fight against the Emperor. And Konrad Curze, he wouldn't have been the leader, but he would have been this major player in everything to come. But on this planet, after all his purposes in life, he just like, do it. Just, I'm done.
I was looking ahead at the notes to see if that quote was included at the during his death, and I'll go ahead and put it here, but or I'll go ahead and plug it in here. But he basically just said like apparently one of his last words was "Death is better than vindication."
Yeah.
So
He'd rather be dead than a hypocrite.
yep, in which in which I joke a lot about Kurz and I joke a lot about the Night Lords, but Jackson Purge have made a very good point over the past few months. The Night Lords were designed as a legion to do the stuff that they do precisely, and yet, and that's what they set out to do in the Great Crusade. But then all of a sudden, now that's a problem, and then they're told to answer for their crimes. But the thing is, why are they getting in trouble for doing the thing that they were bred and made and told to do from the get go?
Yeah, that's fair.
One of the saddest like themes in the omnibus, and even a quote of Konrad Curze, which I could pull up at the very end, is that from little kids, all these Night Lords want to be heroes. And Konrad Curze brought this up like he wanted to be a hero too, growing up. Like they thought what they were doing was right because every villain thinks they're doing the right thing. But at the end of the whatever, when they come to realize that they're not heroes, they all this like, yeah, I'm gonna be a good guy, I'm gonna save the galaxy, but they were forced to be this. And they were forced to be this by a galaxy, and then the galaxy hates it, hates them for it. Ooh,
Yeah, and like that's kind of where I don't think like pointless isn't the right word for it, but it feels like it should have been something else. Like there could have been a more poignant way for him to end, but like maybe that is the poignant way for him to end is by like that whole, death is better than vindication
yeah,
because his death really is a vindication of a sort, right? It's kind of yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to like. I think Konrad Curze is a really interesting character, and that the Night Lords themselves are an interesting legion. And I agree. Like they were they were born and bred to do this. They were like, yeah, we're gonna make you guys the terror troops, and then why are you guys so terrible? I don't know
yeah,
why. Like, but I don't know. It just like I
Tells you to do a job.
yeah, you're doing it too well.
Tells you to do a job. Do the job, dude. What the fuck?
yeah,
Yeah, exactly, right? So like I'm not trying to say like it's I don't know. I'm having a hard time reconciling the fact because I feel like it was anticlimactic, if that
yeah.
makes sense.
I actually have a theory for Kurtz's death, but I'll save that for the end of the episode.
Sounds good.
I think it kind of serves as a nice little irony. Is like you expect like a big Primarch versus Primarch battle where brothers killing brother or whatnot, but you got no, just Calidus assassin chops his head off. That's it. No
Yeah.
fanfare.
That's
She
bitch.
almost gets away too. That's the other
Mm.
crazy thing.
Yeah.
She almost
I love
gets
the
away.
part in the omnibus. I love the part in the omnibus, like all the Night Lords were like, okay, guys, Conrad Curse wants this. But in the back, they're just like holding back Talos, like the main apothecary of Curse. And as soon as after she like kills him, she takes his head and some of the Legion's artifacts. And it's like, oh no, she's got the artifacts. And they let go of Talos for 1 second, and he just zips right at her and gets her.
Times.
Which kind of sad.
If I remember correctly, like did he not explicitly order them not to take revenge on her? because he wanted
Hmm.
this, and yet they did it anyways.
Yeah, we're just that loyal.
It's something, all right.
The drop site massacre. Oh,
Yeah. Yep. So let's not let's we're kind of getting into his death a little too much, so we're gonna kind of rewind things back up to the drop site massacre. So take it back over, Jax.
just so sad, those guys. The drop site massacre. When the loyalists aboard the Einstein delivered the news of the Isfahan 3 atrocity to the Emperor, he did not hesitate. The Emperor commanded 7 of his greatest legions to strike at Horus and his fallen sons of the Isfahan system. The traitors had already chosen their ground, Isfahan 5, where the final stand would be made. The Emperor's forces, unaware of the traitorous betrayal within their ranks, moved to crush the War Master's rebellion, oblivious that 4 of those legions had already abandoned their oaths, forsaking the imperial throne and its sovereign. Aboard the Deletus Lex, Lorgar convened a gathering of unmatched significance. The traitorous commanders, flanked by their primarchs, Night Hunter, Alfarius, and Perturabo, prepared for the final betrayal. Lorgar, standing at the heart of the gathering, delivered a sermon of the most somber import. His words, resonant with the weight of fate, echoed through the chamber, emphasizing the sacredness of their cause, the purity of their rebellion. To them, the Imperium had failed, flawed, imperfect, corrupted by its devotion to the false truth. The Emperor's empire, founded on lies, demanded sacrifice at the cost of truth, and now it must burn. From the ashes, Lorgar promised a new Imperium would arise, one founded on faith, justice, and the will of the Chaos Gods. Hell yeah, brothers. An Imperium ruled not by the fractured mortal emperor, but by the true avatars of power. This was the dawn of a new era, where the flames of destruction would purify all that stood. With a voice stained by the weight of history, Sevatar the Night Lords uttered the words that would become the war cry of an age. Death to the false emperor. Copyright Night Lords. His words were the first to spill from the throats of millions, swelling into a chorus of hatred that would last for over a millennia. As the traitors fortified their positions in the Urgal Depression, the storm of battle descended. The Dies Irae, a mighty Imperator-class Titan, loomed over the ridge, its gun primed to deliver obliteration. The traitor legions were ready, the air thick with the promise of carnage. With the bombardment of Isfahan 5 began, it tore into the land with the fury of a dying world, leaving only devastation in its wake. But as the smoke cleared, the Emperor's children had prepared their defenses, walls of iron and fire awaiting the loyalist assault. From his darkened keep, Horus watched, a predator patiently awaiting the arrival of his prey. When the loyalist assault began, the battle was nothing short of apocalyptic. Led by Ferrus Manus of the Iron Hands, Vulcan of the Salamanders, and Corvus Corax, my boy, of the Raven Guard, the loyalists charged with all the fury of righteous anger. But they had underestimated the true nature of their foe. The traitors, aware of the loyalist drop site, rose up to meet them with a merciless force. The field of battle was a slaughterhouse, a place where brothers fought with ferocity born from betrayal. The titans of the machine god walked, crushing all in their path, while the heretic adepts of the Dark Mechanicum unleashed their perversions of ancient technology, reveling in the chaos of war. The battlefield was choked with the lifeblood of the fallen, the ground slick with the remains of warriors once loyal to the Emperor. The air rang with the death cries of Astartes, their battle cries fading into a sympathy of despair. The blood that flowed freely from the Urgal Depression, pooling in great rivers that threatened to swallow all. The slaughter was unrelenting, each side locked in a struggle of attrition, neither able to gain a decisive edge. The scales of fate hung in the balance, waiting for the smallest of twists to send one side over the edge into ruin. The Loyalists, despite their overwhelming numbers, were still reeling from the devastating losses they had sustained. The traitors, well entrenched and determined, held fast, but their defenses were crumbling. A single spark could shatter the fragile balance. The battle raged on for what seemed like an eternity, the sounds of war echoing across the ruins, the promise of death written into the very air. And then the second wave arrived, heralding the arrival of new forces, stormbirds, thunderhawks, and dropouts screaming through the atmosphere, their arrival punctuating the moment with fiery devastation. The Loyalists believed their reinforcements had come, and the battle would soon be theirs. But as the new arrivals landed, the grim reality of their situation was revealed even more. These were not the reinforcements they had hoped for. The Night Lords, the Word Bearers, the Iron Warriors, and the Alpha Legion, fresh, unbloodied, and fully prepared for battle, fell upon them with brutal precision. The Loyalists, their hope dashed, were trapped in the jaws of betrayal. In the chaos, Ferrus Manus, overcome with rage, ignored the counsel of his two other Loyalist brothers and pursued his nemesis and once best friend, Fulgrim. But his fury only led him into a trap. The second wave of Loyalist legions revealed their true allegiance to Horus, and the slaughter began anew. The once proud heroes of the Emperor were now prey. Torn apart by their former brother in arms, the battle had become a sympathy of death once again, a tragic end to a conflict that would echo through the ages as a testament to the futility of loyalty in a galaxy consumed by war, betrayal, and death.
Oof. Another one.
And another
Yeah.
one.
Did DJ Khaled think? Another one.
Death of the False Emperor, TM Night Lords pursuing everybody else.
TM. Like it's definitely a Night Lords thing for sure. But
And
man, I do think that like when you look at the drop site massacre, like, and how it all kind of unfolded, the Night Lords are the perfect bad guys. They are the heel in wrestling terms, right? Like they're the heel, and they do such a good job at it. Them, the Death Guard, sorry, the because it was
Word
them
Bears.
and sorry,
Iron Warriors and Word Bears, I think.
Iron Warriors. Thank you. Oh God, Iron Warriors, Alpha Legion, and the Word Bearers. Like they were all like really good for that. Like that was definitely like these are all perfect heels, but like I love how the Night Lords just like embody it to the fullest, and they are the ones that are like, yeah, death to the false emperor, and everybody's like, that's a great idea. Like,
Mhm.
wow.
I can imagine Sevatar, he like whispered that and it's like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Everybody like turns towards him and is like, that's good, buddy.
Somebody had to say it, and I was glad it was that guy.
Konrad Curze gives him like a little high five in the back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Give it 1,000 years. It's gonna be big.
It's gonna be big, huge. It's gonna be huge.
Huge. It's gonna be huge.
Like my hands, like China.
Oh, Night Lords, those crazy psychotic people, those Night Lords.
I tell
They
you, they're
brought
the
him
best.
back.
They're the best. You want a situation handled? They'll handle it.
Just don't ask how they do it. Don't ask. You don't want to know how they do it.
Oh boy.
But now we're gonna get into a part that really just knocks Curze down a few points off of my list of favorite Primarchs, and that is the torture of
Okay.
Vulcan. Poor Papa Vulcan. He deserves so much better. Vulcan had endured the infernal wrath of the Iron Warriors' orbital bombardment, emerging from the cataclysmic fire while so many of his sons were consumed in the flames, surrounded by a throng of traitor legionnaires from both the Night Lords and the Iron Warriors. Vulcan felt the weight of inevitability pressing upon him. With stoic valor, the Primarch fought to the bitter end, but the overwhelming tide of enemies drowned his defiance. Shot, stabbed, bludgeoned in the depths of unconsciousness, he fell, his strength waning as darkness claimed him. In that moment, the Night Haunter, broken and maddened, seized the chance to torment his fallen brother. I'm getting this image of like Vulcan is essentially like the chosen undead or the tarnished from Elden Ring. He keeps on dying just to pop back up in the same boss battle and dying all over again.
He dies and fades out.
Yep,
Where
and
would
he
you
just
like to
pops back up.
respawn?
Oh man. When Vulcan stirred, he found himself shackled, his body bound in cruel chains aboard a hulk of the 8th Legion's fleet. For months, Curze reveled in the degradation of Vulcan's spirit and flesh, attempting to break him in every conceivable way. Yet, no matter the brutality he unleashed blows, poison, maiming Vulcan's body regenerated, healing himself in defiance of death. The truth came forth. Vulcan, like the Emperor, was a perpetual, a being of endless renewal. Fury surged within the Night Haunter. For each failed attempt, his hatred deepened. He took it upon himself to slaughter his brother with unrelenting determination, as though the very act of killing could sever the unbearable presence of Vulcan's existence. Curze severed Vulcan's head, ripped his throat out, and tore him apart with savage claws. He burned the flesh with plasma and emptied bolter rounds into his brother's chest. Still, Vulcan returned, whole and mocking testament to Curze's impotence. No torment was spared. Vulcan was cast into the void of space, left to die in the cold, airless dark, only to regenerate once more. Curze, maddened by his brother's immortality, turned to the foul sorceries of the Davanites. Through twisted magic, he ensnared Vulcan's mind, subjecting him to endless mental horrors, futile failures, the deaths of innocents at his hands, and a constant spiral of guilt and despair. Yet even this dark sorcery could not shake Vulcan's resolve. The Night Haunter, frustrated beyond reason, concocted one final trial, a labyrinth, a twisted mockery of hope and escape. Curze offered Vulcan a cruel gift: freedom. If he could survive the labyrinth, if he could reach the center where his Warhammer Dawnbringer awaited. But this was no ordinary maze. Constructed by Perturabo, its design was a maddening enigma. No mind could map its path. Each turn was an impossible contradiction. The walls themselves seemed to defy reason, distorting space and time, rendering escape an eternal impossibility. Yet Vulcan, unyielding, persevered through the madness. His will carried him, and he found his weapon, his only hope. The whole thing with this labyrinth is very interesting because it actually becomes a part of another Primarch story, and we will get to that when we cover Angron and the World Eaters. Those of you who already know, you know what I'm talking about.
Those who know.
For those who know. With Dawnbringer in hand, he stood against his jailer, and in that moment, Vulcan used the hidden teleporter embedded in the hammer's design. The hum of its power surged, and Vulcan vanished, transported halfway across the galaxy to the airless heights above Macragge. Hold on, pause for just a second, because there is a little thing he does right before that. He and Curze are going back and forth, and then Vulcan has the audacity to say, "But you forgot one thing, brother. It is also a hammer." Bam! Just chucks it, clocks him right across the face.
I can imagine that whole exchange.
As,
Oh,
as I should have pulled up that quote and said I got the one between him and Sanguinius, but more on that later. Okay. As he plummeted toward the planet, his body once again scarred by the fire of re-entry burned away in the flames. Poor Vulcan. He just can't catch a break. But But even in his final moments, as darkness claimed his vision, Vulcan knew one thing: he would return. His body would heal, his purpose would continue, and in the care of his ultramarine cousins, he would find peace, if only for a fleeting moment.
uh, poor Vulcan. He
Mm.
he's like the guy you post a picture of on Reddit and be like, name me a character who has suffered more. You can't.
Right?
Go,
Exactly.
go ahead. I'll wait.
Yeah. I love Vulcan. He's one of my favorite characters, and I hated reading the book where he got tortured. I was like, this sucks. I hate this.
Yeah. You can imagine him with his like Jamaican accent, like, brothers, I made you all cookies. Right before the drop site massacre.
There is a meme that I like sending to my buddy who's a big Angron and World Eaters fan, and it is just a picture of Vulcan just bear hugging Angron. He goes, "Don't worry, you are not alone." And it's just Angron just like crying, "No."
No.
Oh, knock it out.
Love it, man. Oh, but like, really, you're gonna get a perpetual Primarch and have him up against the guy that loves to torture and skin people alive. I wonder how that's gonna go. Oh man.
There's actually, strangely, there's art of this, but it's in the Primarch girlfriend version. It's really good, but I would advise looking it up, and it's literally just it's this like short Vulcan hanging up while Curse is like kind of smiling with his knife, and the other one is Vulcan with a hammer about to like beat the crap out of Conrad.
Sick. I love it. But
Don't look it up
um
though. It's Slanesh stuff.
Why, Jax? Why? You had such promise. You had such promise.
I can't. I looked at it once. It's like the
Why?
ring of in Lord of the Rings.
not even once, Jax, not even once.
Oh man.
Oh
There's a
boy.
reason why I like the Night Lords. They're the edgy ones.
I just love edging, okay? It's like that. There's like there's a T-shirt for a different podcast that I saw, and their T-shirt is "I'm an edging enthusiast," and it's them like edging a space marine, edge highlighting a space marine. It says "edging enthusiast." I love that. That's my favorite T-shirt. I would buy that and wear it everywhere, and have everybody look at me like I'm insane. Only the real ones get this. Is what I would think.
If you know
Oh,
you.
jeez. Oh, boy. All right. Outriders of Rebellion. At the onset of the Horus Heresy, the Night Lords stood as a fearsome force, their blades and hatred honed by countless years of warfare, the Legion tempered by ceaseless battle and an unyielding grudge against the Loyalists, had long been scarred by their grim history. Konrad Curze's imprisonment on Sarut prior to the ruin of Nostromo and his encounter with Rogel Dorn had branded the Night Lords with a mark that the traitors could not ignore. Their trust, fragile as it was, had been earned. Horus, ever the manipulator, saw their value and placed them at the forefront of his machinations, entrusting them with the role of harbingers of terror, the vanguard of his war to tear down the Emperor's reign. The Night Lords were set upon worlds yet uncertain, their task to sow fear and unrest in the hearts of those who dared to remain undecided in their loyalties. By the time their skinning knives had tasted the blood of the unwilling, Horus promised that the worlds which bent the knee to him would be spared, protected from the nightmares unleashed by his servants. To the rest, death would come swiftly, visited upon them in a form that would become a dark trademark of the Legion. The Night Lords were the emissaries of Horus's dark compliance, their presence ensuring that dozens of star systems fell to the traitor cause. The cost of defiance was always apparent, as the worlds swallowed in fear learned the price of resistance, the terror, the bloodshed, the cold inevitability of extinction. The northern reaches of the Imperium, once proud and defiant, were soon under the shadow of the traitors, their fall heralded by the wails of the broken and the helpless. Horus had begun to carve out a domain from the heart of the Imperium, an empire built on fear, yet one that could not thrive under the grim watch of the Night Lords. For they had become something more horrific than simply instruments of terror. They had become a force of chaos, a self destructive scourge that fed on cruelty for its own sake. As the conquest of new worlds continued, the Legion's grip tightened, but the toll on the resources became undeniable. The Night Haunter, blinded by his ceaseless need to exact suffering, had let the Legion descend into madness. Each misfortune, each failure was punished with grotesque and unrestrained violence. The precise instrument of Horus' will had become rabid beast, one whose brutality served only to weaken the very empire it sought to build. What began as calculated cruelty had dissolved into an undisciplined hunger for pain, and the stability Horus required was slipping through his fingers. Left unchecked, the Night Lords would unravel the very plans they were meant to further. They had become a blight upon Horus's preparations, a malignant presence that threatened to undo the fragile empire he sought to create. In an effort to regain control, Horus gave the Night Lords a new task. No longer would they fester in the Imperium's heart, sowing discord and decay. Instead, they were sent to the eastern fringe of the galaxy, tasked with extending the Dark Empire's reach even further. They would carve through new territories, bring new resources and power under Horus's banner, and strengthen the ever growing armada that would one day bear down upon Terra. In the darkness of the stars, the Night Lords would continue their mission, harbingers of doom and dread, their actions irrevocably tied to the tragedy of their legion's fall. They were no longer soldiers in a great war, they were ghosts of terror, bound to their master's will and to the endless hunger for suffering that had consumed them all.
Oof.
Man, oh man.
Yeah, it's just if you let people skin people alive, they might get a little out of hand. That's all I'm saying. Like you don't have to like completely end the violence, but let's just take a big step back and let's just analyze, is this too many flayed people? Yes. Okay.
Nah, let's take it up a notch.
Let's move on. Yeah, and then but then in their minds they're like, not enough flayed people. We need to flame more people.
That number's too small. Add a few more zeros.
I imagine the ultimate irony is like there are some Night Lords that just treat it as like we're just trying to psych you out. We're not actually doing the flaying, guys. What the hell's wrong with you? And then there is like the other Night Lords on the other side of the Legion, just like, yeah, we do. I flayed like 5 this week. What's keeping you here?
Right? Oh man.
I saw somewhere that apparently the CIA had released documents of enhanced interrogation methods, and
Oh no.
two of them included putting them in a pitch black dark room, putting a caterpillar on the table, and then just telling them, "Yeah, you got a Black Widow sitting right in front of you. Good luck." So
Oh my god.
it's not like doing actual harm, but just like giving them that psychological, you might be in a position where a poisonous spider is going to bite you, even though there actually isn't one. That sort of thing.
Right?
Another just a silly little joke they could do. A few episodes we talked about the Xenos that could like shapeshift. What was that? The something that could like shapeshift. Imagine like putting like a bunch of people in this room and just saying like, oh yeah, there's this one Xeno in this room that could turn into one of you and wants to eat you all. Good luck.
Yeah,
Oh man,
exactly
And
right.
everybody's just a normal human.
they just watch them tear each other apart.
Right?
Yeah.
Purge made a really good comment. Ironic that Big E and Horus both release a rabid dog and then get upset that it gets off its chain.
I'm glad you said that because I was about to bring that comment up too. That is a very, very
Like
good point.
Horus is like, the Emperor can't control them. I could do it. And then he's like, oh my god, I can't do it.
And it's
Take him
funny.
back, Dad.
It's and it's funny how Horus like treats these legions the same exact way the Emperor did. Like, take a look at the go back to the Iron Warriors episodes. Like, Pershurabo got zero recognition under the Emperor, so he joins Horus. He gets zero recognition under Horus, says "fuck this shit, I'm out," and leaves the siege of Terra.
Right?
Oh man,
Oh,
the Night Lords, this will probably come up in the 30th episode, but I just like saying that they're the greatest, but they were the first ones on the Terra's walls. Luki
Yep,
Forius in
they were.
the second Siege of Terra book. They were actually. Fight me on this. I'm joking. But Luki Forius and a bunch of raptors were the first one on the walls. They fought Sanguinius and the Blood Angels. Sure, they all got like nearly wiped out to a man, but they still did good. They were the first one up there.
It shows their commitment, man.
I would like to direct you to a GIF that Brody had sent us earlier this afternoon when we were talking about the episode. He's in the walls. He's in the goddamn walls.
I mean, that
Right?
is a tactic of the Night Lords, just to run away when things get bad. I can imagine one just like kind of like jump through like a little hole in the wall and just hides there for the rest of the siege.
Oh man, good times. Oh boy. Well, speaking of rabid dogs off the chain and the fear that they bring, an empire of fear. On the cold, distant stars of the Nostromo sector, Horus first unleashed the Night Lords, an omen of terror for the worlds that had once bent their knee to Konrad Curze. Before his sudden departure from Imperial space, after the Night Haunter's imprisonment on Chirrut and destruction of Nostromo in 984.M30, these worlds would once again feel his wrath. The sector, once a prosperous region filled with nearly 100 inhabited star systems, many of them hive worlds, remained a prize in the hands of the traders, even after the fall of its capital world. In these forsaken realms, bitter and desperate souls longed to serve the War Master, eager to avenge their suffering and reshape their fates against the distant Terra that had condemned them to toil. The sector, indifferent to the pleas of the Emperor's loyalists, offered a fertile ground for rebellion. Its lack of allegiance made it ripe for conquest, and the Night Haunter, grim harbinger of terror, seemed a perfect tool for the task. But this would prove a tragic misjudgment. The Night Lords, it seemed, were ill suited to the very conquest they had been given. For decades, the worlds surrounding the ruins of Nostromo had suffered under the Night Haunter's iron rule. His laws, unyielding and cruel, bound the people in endless suffering. A small infraction meant death or maiming, and the fear he sowed was so ingrained that it hollowed out the very souls of the oppressed. Beneath the surface, however, the unspoken sins of the people festered, unseen by their former masters, yet waiting to break free. With the Night Haunter's absence during the final years of the Great Crusade, the dam holding these suppressed fears finally broke. The worlds, long enslaved, rose up against their oppressors. Criminal syndicates and ruthless gangs seized control, indulging in the horrors Curze had long forbade, and plunging these worlds into even greater chaos. What had once been a twisted but structured rule was now replaced by anarchy and brutality, a far darker terror than even Curze had wrought. To many in the traitor ranks, these new overlords, though corrupt, were useful tools. They could offer resources, troops, and munitions to fuel the war effort. But to Konrad Curze, they were an affront to everything he had killed for. The vision he had for his realm, an empire of fear, was not one of disorder and degradation. The syndicates that had taken root were a stain upon the legacy he had built through endless bloodshed. When the Night Lord's fleet arrived, Syndarchs of the Blood Moon Syndicate and gathered on the remote world of Kedur 8, eager to pledge their loyalty to Curze. They sought only to offer a portion of their riches, believing that their territories would be spared the bloodshed they had witnessed on other worlds. But instead, they found themselves faced with the wrath of the Night Haunter. No tribute could save them. Curse descended upon them, intent on nothing less than their destruction. Kedur 8 was left broken, its population mere collateral for the blood soaked slaughter of the guilty. This brutal massacre would set the tone for the Night Haunter's return to his former domain. Even those worlds that had once adhered to his draconian laws would find no mercy. The Night Lords, now driven by the vision of their master's twisted will, waged a war of vengeance that bled into every corner of the sector. While the other traitor legions focused on the assault against Terra, the Night Lords waged a private war, one that was as much about fear and dominance as it was about fulfilling Horus's conquest. But this was more than just the prosecution of Horus's grand campaign. For Konrad Curze, this return to Nostromo was a harbinger of his own tragic fate, a fate he had long foreseen but still fought against. In the descent of his former domains into chaos, Curze saw not only the death of the sector, but the destruction of his own soul and the eternal damnation of his legion. Desperation guided his hand now as he unleashed his warriors upon the galaxy, hoping to erase the signs of his own downfall. Yet, in every blood soaked step, he knew this war was a futile attempt to turn the course of fate, to deny the horror that had always awaited him and his Night Lords.
Oof.
Big oof
Golly.
again.
Another big oof. Another one.
And another one. Yeah.
But it kind of leads to the issue though with history lesson. There is a book called The Prince, and it is by one Niccolo Machiavelli. For anyone that's played Assassin's Creed 2, you know who I'm talking about. And he was the guy that very much kind of pioneered the, I guess, like the political game that a lot of like your Game of Thrones type of characters kind of play. And it seems like Kurz kind of read the first part where the guy says it's good to rule through fear, and then just did not read the rest of the book and then just ran with it.
A
But
lot of words. I'm not gonna read them.
it's easier to rule through fear. All right, vindication. But the other half of that book says it's better to rule through respect and love, because when you rule through just fear, it creates more chaos when you're no longer there to enforce it, which is exactly what happens when Kurz leaves Nostromo. Machiavellianism, yes, Purge, that is the correct word. Oh
It's
no.
funny because, and then there were two. No. But
All according to
it's funny.
plan.
It's funny. Kurz had one job. These guys were loyal to Horus. These guys were gonna do whatever you wanted. Just don't be rude and flay everybody. The Night Lords were rude and flayed everybody.
You had one job. One job.
Yep. It's
Oh
exactly
boy.
what Purge said. It's just letting a rabid dog loose. And it's like, oh, here's the world. You like leave for 5 seconds, you come back. No more world.
Oh, I'm going to get back to like while we're waiting on Brody to come back. I'm going to get back to this because he had some interesting points and some very interesting conspiracy theories to bring up. So while we were waiting on Brody, let's go to the first one: Tariff Tactics, Dark Prophecy. Okay, like I said, Conrad was just Big E's MK Ultra project. It wasn't a question if he would snap; it was more of a question of the severity of it. I still think Big E was influencing his visions, using them to destroy any sense of morality and eventually causing a psyche break, making him have a split personalities. And if Big E was manipulating his visions from the beginning, it makes Conrad's story even more tragic, being he was nurtured by his father to be the way he was and not being just a product of his nature. Very interesting stuff. So that is a interesting theory to kind of make, if whether or not it was just Nostromo that kind of broke Conrad or if there was some subtle manipulation by the Emperor. So I mean, I could see it either way.
I personally like the theory that the Emperor is like, because he has all this power, right? He saw this would happen. He saw the heresy. He just didn't know how it would play out. And maybe this was a way for him to like get rid of the more like less loyal sons he might have thought at the beginning of the heresy. So if he used like, well, in the Dark Imperium novel, I should say, he
Mm-hmm.
views his sons as tools. this might be just him, this might be a fractured version of him, but since he believed, like, if we're going the train of thought that he thought these guys were tools, maybe he just needed Conrad for like a very blunt knife that you jab into someone once and then call it good. But now you just have this blunt knife that like has no purpose. So maybe
Hmm.
like if you like gave yourself a reason and for like the whole galaxy to be like, oh, this guy's crazy, we don't want him anymore. It's a good way to like turn everyone against this one guy. Like he's insane, but he has his uses. His use is done. Let's get rid of him.
And the crazy thing is, I can wholeheartedly believe that because, like, we've talked about before in older episodes where it's just like you got the Thunder Warriors. Once Big E was done with them as that blunt tool to unite Terra, he got rid of them. And then a lot of that was talked about, especially by the Custodes when the Great Crusade was wrapping up. Like, what's going to happen to the Astartes when everything's all said and done? What's going to happen to the Primarchs when everything's all said and done? So there was always that talk and thought in the back of everyone's mind is just like, what if the Emperor decides he wants to get rid of the Space Marines and the Primarchs as well once they serve their purpose? So.
Yeah, it's a very interesting train of thought because if every Primarch, if he tried the same thing with the Thunder Warriors, all the Primarchs would just gang up on him and just beat him up.
Mm-hmm.
If you eliminate them one by one, probably starting with Curze, it would make things a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. They're basically just like, because I think I've mentioned this before in a couple of our other Primarch episodes, is there have been some theories that the Emperor saw the heresy coming, so he planned it out from the beginning, so that way it wouldn't turn out as bad as it could have been. And that included ones like Kurz getting Magnus set up for the Golden Throne, getting basically just kind of shying away from Perturabo, sort of stuff like that. So it makes a lot of sense. We got some more
Yeah.
fire. We got some more fire comments from Purge here. Also going off of the idea that Conrad was Big E MK Ultra pet project. He still ended up aiding the loyalists by destroying the traitor base of support. Yep, and he's not wrong there. And then he says, I see Big E playing 4D chess, and Conrad, the main piece on the board, he knew the heresy would happen and wanted Conrad to discredit any sympathy. We didn't get to that point, but it was Conrad's vision. I could see that. Like, no joke, I can genuinely see that.
Yeah, for sure. Like Emperor, if we stated previously, he knows what's going to happen. He gives the most insane, the craziest, the most batshit guys to the opposite team. Like Curse, oh yeah, he can see the future, but he flays people. Let's not have him on our
Mm-hmm.
side.
Mm-hmm. And even Horus himself kind of points out, like, when he's like surveying like his forces or whatnot, when like the heresy's getting started, like, even he says himself, I am a master of broken monsters.
I can imagine Horus would have wanted people like Corvus or Gilman or the Lion on his side
Mm.
because he like tries so hard to get Sanguinius, but he's stuck with Conrad Curze.
He's like, I wanted Dorn and the Lion, but I got fucking Purdy. And I got Alfaris. He doesn't know if he's loyal or not.
Yeah. Price of infamy. Had Konrad Curze's tools been sharper, had his will been more resilient, perhaps such desperate measures would have been borne fruit. But the Night Lords had become something else entirely, something broken and hollow. The decay that had overtaken the Nostromo sector ran deeper and more insidiously than any had anticipated. Its roots spread far beyond the corrupted worlds, pledged to the Night Lords, and even into the Legion itself. For centuries, the Night Lords had drawn their recruits from a small cluster of worlds near Nostromo, worlds now steeped in rot. These recruits, though capable killers, lacked the unyielding discipline and sacred duty that had once been the hallmark of the Emperor's first legions, whose warriors had been forged on Terra itself. Now the companies of the Legion swelled with these new recruits, many of whom were little more than savage shadows of the warriors who had stood beside Curze at the beginning. The veterans of the old Terran ranks looked upon their younger brethren with disdain, disheartened by the sight of a legion that had strayed far too far from the path. The Night Lords were children of a corrupted age. They had been shaped by the same toxic regimes that had blighted the Nostroman sector, far removed from the brutal yet purposeful struggle that had forged the Night Haunter and the gangs of old Nostromo, no longer guided by Curze's harsh creed of retribution and consequence. These new warriors reveled in the simple exercise of their power. They were not bound by law or even the old laws of blood repayment. They were driven solely by the need to dominate and destroy. The creed of strength had twisted, and now power was measured by the terror one could invoke. The legion's ranks were filled with those who had clawed their way up from the filth of society, whose powers were defined by fear and the blood of the weak. To these recruits, strength was a weapon to yield, and they wielded it without remorse, without restraint, and without pity. They were no longer a legion, but a host of marauding killers loosed upon the galaxy. When the Night Haunter set his legion loose upon the worlds in the Nostromo sector, they did not march as a disciplined force, but as an unruly throng. They bore no resemblance to the meticulous formations of the old Eighth Legion, nor even to the savage yet focused strikes of the Raven Guard or White Scars. They were a mob of frenzied slaughter. Though skilled, their violence knew no boundaries. Where they met resistance, it shattered beneath their brutality. But where they were to instill order, there was only chaos. The terror they unleashed spread across the worlds they touched, cloaking them in fear like a funeral shroud. But fear alone could not rebuild what had been broken. The lawless, blood-soaked reign of the Night Lords left the worlds crippled, unable to meet the new tithes demanded by Horus. Though Curze's code was obeyed in the hollowest sense, it was a shell, nothing more. Those veterans who had still remembered the old ways fought on, their methods measured and practical. They had once brought the Legion glory, and they had hoped to restore it, but their efforts were thwarted by the wild fervor of the newer recruits, those born of the Legion's corruption. Both the veterans and the new warriors, whether of Terran or Nostroman descent, found themselves drifting further from Curze's consul, the Primarch whose visions had always driven them to greater violence. Now listened to the bloodthirsty whispers of his more recent officers. The veterans, those who had carried the Night Lords through the Great Crusade, saw the promise of the Legion's restoration in their efforts. But Curze's blindness to the futility of his blood-soaked path listened less and less to their reasoned counsel. As Horus' rebellion grew stronger, as the Imperium descended deeper into war, Curze's dreams grew darker. Filled with the certainty of doom, he turned away from the veterans who had fought beside him, and instead heeded the advice of those who reveled in the very chaos he had once sought to impose. And so, as the fleet marshaled for the assault on the Thramis sector, Curze and his legion set a new course, not for redemption, but for destruction. What had been the pride of the Night Lords, a symbol of disciplined fear, had become a hollow, frenzied thing. Led by a man who had lost his way, the Legion's fate, now irrevocably sealed, was no longer to conquer, but to burn, and burn it shall.
So let the galaxy burn.
Gotta love it.
Jax, I think your narrating voice has stirred a little bit of talk in the chat here.
Jax has got it, man.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that voice. He's got
Mhm.
that soothing, sultry little
Thank you.
little bit of je ne sais quoi.
He flayed the man. So well, so good. Narration by Jax.
Exactly. Narration by Jax.
Well, see, you already got a narration commission by Purge. If I ever submit my lore, I want Jax to read.
Hire me, GW. I see what you do on Instagram with your new Age of Sigmar books. Real quick, everybody loves the redemptionist hero, like Zuko from Avatar,
Mm-hmm.
Jetfire from Transformers, but it's I've never seen this, but I love it. The people who tried to redeem themselves but failed, and now they're even worse.
Mm. That's always tragic.
Yeah.
It's always
There's always
tragic.
some of that going around.
Mm-hmm. So there was been talk of this Thramis Crusade Jackson mentioned earlier. So now we're actually going to get into that and see what this is all about. But first, there is another quote that's attributed to Konrad Curze. So we don't know for sure if he said it, but I'm going to do my best impression anyways. These humans, their imaginations are strong. Kill 1,000 men and they will hate you. Kill 1,000,000 men and they will queue to face you. But kill a single man and they will see monsters and devils in every shadow. Kill a dozen men and they will scream and wail in the night, and they will feel fear, not hatred. This is the way of my obedience, my sons. They are panicky, gossiping beasts. These humans, it serves us to allow them to be so. I mean, that very much harkens back to like that. I can't, I can't remember the name of the guy, but he basically made the quote like, "You kill a man, you're a murderer. You kill 1,000, you're a conqueror. You kill 1,000,000, and it's just a statistic."
Yeah, the one death is a tragedy, a million a statistic.
Mm-hmm. So, following the devastation of the drop site massacre, Horus convened a grim council aboard his flagship, Vengeful Spirit, to chart the next bloody step in their rebellion. 8 of the traitor legion's primarchs attended, though Alpharius, master of the Alpha Legion, remained conspicuously absent. I guess he was assigned to be loyal that day. Among them were Horus, Fulgrim, Angron, Mortarion, and Lorgar, 5 primarchs who had tasted the bitter ash of Istvan V. 3 more appeared as haunting projections through the warp: Perturabo, the Night Haunter, and Magnus the Red. Magnus, broken by the scouring of Prospero and the cruel ministrations of Zinch, had only recently joined the traitors, bringing his battered 15th Legion into the fold. Together, the Primarchs formed a dark and holy alliance, bound by betrayal and their thirst for vengeance against the Emperor. The Night Haunter's fleet, already departing, was bound for Segualsa, Salsa, a desolate world hidden in the depths of the eastern fringe, where the Night Lords would launch their brutal campaign for the extermination against the imperial bastions of Heroldor and Thramis. This campaign, the Thramis Crusade, would drag on for nearly 3 years, a bloody struggle in the shadow of 1,000 shattered lives. The fate of the Thramis system, home to key Mechanicum Forge worlds loyal to the Emperor, hung in the balance. The Night Haunter's role in the crusade was pivotal. He sought not only to destroy, but to unnerve, to fracture. He set a trap for his brother, Lionel Johnson, with a beacon in the void, designed to draw the Lion into a parley with Segualska. The meeting began in false civility, with words exchanged between former brothers, but beneath the surface hatred festered, and when the Night Haunters slandered the Lion, the truce shattered. The confrontation spiraled into a brutal brawl, an unholy clash of brothers. As the Night Haunter sought to strangle L. Johnson, a Dark Angel's honor guard pierced his back with a blade, pulling the Lion from the brink of death and saving him from his brother's grip. Both the Primarchs were dragged from the battlefield, bloodied but alive, their legions' war for dominance now steeped in personal hatred. This bitter conquest would continue, but fate had darker plans. In the next engagement, the Dark Angels executed a perfectly timed ambush, crippling the Night Lord's fleet as it crossed the subsector. The Night Lords, shattered and broken, lost dozens of capital ships and 1/4 of their forces. Konrad Curze, mortally wounded from yet another savage confrontation with the Lion, was nearly undone. Yet, in a desperate act of defiance, the Night Haunter rallied what remained of his fleet, leading to a doomed boarding action against the Dark Angel's flagship, Invincible Reason. The Atramentar, elite warriors of the Night Lords, led the assault, but the cost was catastrophic. Only a dozen of the Atramentar survived, and First Captain Sevatar, along with the remaining survivors, were captured. In the wake of this desperate attempt, Curze fled into the shadows, stalking the bowels of the Dark Angel's flagship, eluding his brother's wrath for months. But in the end, even the Night Haunter could not escape the inevitable. His fleet, broken and scattered, fled into the void, leaving behind a legacy of despair and betrayal that would echo through the ages.
Ooh.
And I think this is the point where Jax has a fun little mention he's been itching to make. So
So, Kurz, we've seen him beat Dorn. We've seen him beat the Lion. He hides in the Lion's walls doing the good old Night Lord Vietnamese trick, and he stays there for months. And when they go to McCrag, he solos, well, actually, more info on this fun little, like, curses in the walls joke can be found in the Lions episode, which I highly recommend, a really cool episode. But Conrad is lands on McCrag, captured by the Lion. He escapes, and then he solos both the Lion and Gilliman on McCrag while terrorizing the populace. How cool is that? I'm a Night Lord fan, and it might only be cool to me, but I just gotta say,
I like the part where Lion basically just gets frustrated, is ready to rage quit. And he's like, you know what? Glass the fucking place. I'm tired of this. Let's be done. And then Gilliam is just like, my mom lives there. This is my home world. No.
I also love that, like, he solos Gilliman and he solos the Lion, and he does a pretty good job against him. But 10 Space Wolves just about fuck him up,
yeah.
which is hilarious in that book. 10 Space Wolves were like, Night Haunter, you bitch. More like Night Bedwetter. And they just go hard. Like, they almost kill him. They almost kill him. And it's like, okay, this is hilarious.
Yeah, that's the thing about Kurz. He is really good against Primarchs, and like we see him like hiding in the walls of the Invincible Reason, just like popping out at random times, just like a randomly stabbed lion and just run back like the little coward he is. But when it comes to like just any space marine whatsoever, like he folds like a chair, like Coruscant stabs in the back, just he's out for the rest of the fight. 10 Space Wolves, a bonsai him, he's done.
Like, I just don't get it. Like, what? Oh, man.
To
Funny
be
how that works.
And to be fair, having that foresight does give you a huge advantage when you're fighting, especially like one-on-one Primarchs. The only thing about the Lion, though, is because he is such a good duelist. I can't remember the passage, but it basically described that like Kurz knew the move that Lion was going to make. Lion was in the middle of making a swing. He catches up. He catches up on what Kurz is doing. Changes his stroke mid swing to try and actually land a hit. He was that good of a duelist.
Yeah, it makes sense why he beat Ingron, because Lion is just he's top five. I'd say Kurz
Mm-hmm.
is five, just because I'm a Kurz fan. Guy just like just a little bit. But I'd say Lion is actually like two in terms of Primarch
Mm-hmm.
abilities for
Mm-hmm.
duelists. Like he's just that good. He knows the future.
He's good. Yeah. Yeah, he's good. Like
Which is really cool.
I don't think anyone here is going to deny that. So yeah, that is really cool. But as with all good things, they must come to an end. Brody,
They
would you like to
must.
take it over from here?
I would. The Great Scouring. The death of the Night Haunter. My sons, the galaxy is burning. We all bear witness to a final truth. Our way is not the way of the Imperium. You have never stood in the Emperor's light, never worn the Imperial eagle, and you never will. You shall stand in midnight clad, your claws forever red with the lifeblood of my father's failed empire, warring through the centuries at the talons of a murdered god. Rise, my sons, and take your wrath across the stars. In my name, in my memory, rise, my night lords. Yeah, the Primarch Konrad Curze. I can't read the rest because it made a weird thing on my thing, and I can't. It's all just like one letter, so I
Oh
can't read the.
no.
Give me 2 seconds.
1, 2.
And there we go. Yeah, I had to like exit out, come back in. The Night Lords had no allegiance to any of the Chaos Gods. They wielded the forces of chaos as mere instruments in their reign of terror. Born from the criminal underbelly of Nostromo before its fall, the Legion was composed of murderers and monsters who carved a bloody path across the stars. As the traitor legions united in their heresy and marched upon Terra, the Night Lords followed their brutal methods unrelenting. But after the death of Horus at the Emperor's hands, the Night Lords did not retreat into the Eye of Terror as others did. Instead, they pressed on, their bloody campaigns now focused on the Imperium's eastern fringes. Yet their tactics grew increasingly erratic, driven by a self destructive desperation, a thirst for death and ruin that could never be quenched. The Emperor, desiring to see the Night Lords eradicated once and for all, dispatched half of the Calidus Temple of Assassins to hunt down the fallen Primarch. Shen, a lone agent, infiltrated the Night Lord's lair on Seguelsa, a world cloaked in shadows. There he found Konrad Curze, no longer the regal Primarch of the Legion, but a broken, twisted monster, hunched and naked, consumed by madness. Shen's video log would later capture the dying words of the Night Haunter. Your presence does not surprise me, assassin. I have known of you ever since your craft entered the eastern fringes. Why did I not have you killed? Because your mission and the act you are about to commit proves the truth of all I've ever said or done. I merely punished those who had wronged, just as your false emperor now seeks to punish me. Death is nothing compared to vindication. The last image on
I misquoted it, crap. I misquoted it earlier.
the last image of Konrad Kurz is a haunting one. His mad black eyes glinting with the knowledge that his horrific visions had come to pass. His lipless smile, cruel and knowing, spoke of a man who had long since abandoned the notion of redemption. The video feed cuts out at the moment Emshen leaps toward him, and the death of the Night Haunter was never confirmed. Some believe Kurz allowed himself to die, seeing in himself the very corruption and villainy he had once sought to destroy. His final words, enigmatic and chilling, would become one of the Imperium's greatest mysteries, a tragic reminder of a man who saw the inevitable ruin of his own soul long before it was too late. Yeah, that's oof, oof. I love
Oof.
it. The whole death is nothing compared to vindication. As soon as I read it, I was like, "Oh, we've been saying it."
Mm. Oh, man.
Love you, Gerald.
Well,
It's good.
there's so much 40K lore. You don't have to memorize
Right.
everything, but poor Curze, man.
What is, man, of all the quotes that we've read throughout, like all these episodes worth of notes, like every single Curse quote just hits so hard.
Yeah.
I will say that, yeah, Kurz, he's quotable. He's definitely quotable. The man has a way with words. Not one of the quote unquote great orators of the empire, but I don't know, man. He's definitely got the few words that he says pretty prophetic.
He's of the people.
Most of the time, he's like, so anyway, I started flaying. Every other time, he's like, his quotes hit like a bus.
Anyways, I started flaying. Like just Konrad Curze with Danny DeVito's hair.
But then when he's having his
Oh,
epiphany
Jesus.
with like the Emperor and like how he's just a tool, he's like, oh my God, I get it.
I can't. Oh man. Good times all around there.
Maybe not for Konrad, but
Especially for Konrad. The man's got good time on good times.
I'll save it for the end of the episode, but I do have a theory His death was never confirmed except by one person. And we'll get into that person probably later because he is pretty prominent. But anyway,
Hmm.
his
Okay.
appearance and personality, which everybody should know, everybody knows his personality. He is the lunatic of the Primarchs. Konrad Curze, the Night Haunter, was a figure of both regal authority and nightmarish terror. In his youth, he stood tall and imposing, his physique sculpted like the other Primarchs, radiating strength and command. His pale, almost ghostly skin and dark, penetrating eyes gave him an unsettling presence, but it was his expression, a mix of grim intensity and silent suffering, that marked him as different from the others. As the Primarch of the Night Lords, Kurz was a commander who exuded cold logic and brutal resolve. His word cape calculated to instill fear or manipulate his subordinates. His appearance was regal, in its own way, adorned with the symbols of his legion, but the darkness that clung to him made it impossible to mistake him for anything other than a harbinger of doom. His towering presence was accentuated by his dark armor, which seemed to absorb the light around him, just as his reputation absorbed the hope of any who dared defy him. As the years passed and the weight of his visions grew, Kurze's appearance began to mirror the decay of his mind. The once proud, noble, and honorable Primarch became increasingly gaunt, his features twisted by a burden of his prophetic curse. His eyes, once filled with determination, darkened with madness and grief, reflecting the terrible burden of seeing a future that he could not escape. His once sturdy frame withered under the weight of his own despair, his physical form becoming a grotesque reflection of the tortured soul within. As he fell deeper into the pit of nihilism, his personality eroded into something darker, more unpredictable. The Night Hunter became less the strategic and calculating leader and more a creature driven by vengeance and self loathing. His mind, already fractured by his visions of the Imperium's inevitable collapse, turned increasingly to violence and madness until the monster he had always feared to become finally consumed him. By the end of his life, Curse had become a living shadow of the terror he had sought to inspire, a broken and tormented shell of the once proud Primarch who had first led the Night Lords into their dark legacy.
I mean, look at this guy. Isn't he just
Yeah,
huggable? I mean,
he's so hot. He's like Danny DeVito to the rest of the Primarchs at the stage.
I mean, he honestly could have used one
Oh
of Papa
man,
Vulcan's hugs. Honestly.
Yeah.
it's going to be okay, Conrad. Get away from me! I'm trying to be edgy.
Purge makes a good comment. Conrad's entire story makes me think of the Joker's one bad day concept.
Yeah.
He's not wrong. I would say that would be best reserved for Angron, but again, that'll have to wait until we actually cover Angron. One bad childhood.
Entire childhood, entire life, entire just like years of living.
One bad life. There we go. So I have before we let Jax continue with the war gear, I do have an excerpt from the book Ruin Storm, and this is Kurz and Sanguinius kind of going at each other. Just another bit of like that mirroring between like the holy angel that is Sanguinius and then the bat winged monstrosity that is Kurz. Sanguinius put his hope to the test. Father won't have you executed, he said. I believe he should, but you're right, he won't. Prison would be very dull, said Kurz. I'll miss our conversations. Sanguinius ignored the taunt. Father might do worse, he said. He watched Kurz's face closely. He might forgive you. He struck home. Kurz's mask of contempt fell. The unease returned. The reptilian eyes widened as they saw destiny enter a state of flux. In the storm of emotions that passed in micro tremors over the Night Haunter, Sanguinius saw anger and doubt. He saw horror again at the thought that the universe really was not as Curze had known it to be for so long and so absolutely. And Sanguinius saw what he was looking for. He saw the rarest of all things in Curze's eyes. He saw hope. That was what he needed. That was confirmation. He pushed Curze into the stasis coffin. The Night Haunter fell back and lay prone, helpless. He might forgive you, Sanguinius repeated. I don't. You cannot have that redemption. I won't let you. Rest certain in your destiny. You will have it. I am not taking you to Father. You can't kill me either. I die at the hands of Father's assassins. I'm not going to kill you. I am going to jettison your coffin into the void. The assassin will find you when the time comes. It may be millennia, Konrad. The hope vanished forever from Curze's eyes, replaced by a different form of horror. You claim destiny can't be altered, Sanguinius continued. So be it. Yours will be as you say. He stepped back and depressed the pad on the side of the coffin, generating the stasis field. It froze Curze in mid-scream.
What the hell, Sanguinius?
You done goofed if you pissed off Sanguinius.
Yeah.
Right?
He at the first part of that, I always imagine like the symbolic, like they sit on the beach, like discussing, like there's still hope for you. You can be redeemed. And then Sanguinius pushes him into a status coffin and is like, ha, fuck you.
But it's not going to be by me.
Oh
Uh,
boy.
there was hope. It was my job to shatter it.
Oh, he
Sanguinius.
shattered it big time. Oh,
Uh,
man.
poor, poor Conrad. See, if he was only showing love at that moment, maybe there might have been hope.
All
Anyway,
right.
his war gear. During the Horus Heresy, Konrad Curze's war gear reflected both his brutal nature and his mastery over fear. He wore the distinctive power armor of the Night Lords, a suit that was adorned with macabre trophies, his jagged, barbed designs that mirrored the terror his legion inspired. His armor was a dark reflection of his twisted psyche, with its sharp edges eerie, shadow-like appearance, designed to instill dread in those who saw him. His war gear was a terrifying combination of elegance and destruction, reflecting his unyielding drive to impose his own twisted sense of justice upon this galaxy.
I love the idea of war gear just being designed to make people go, eh.
Yeah,
Just fear me.
yeah. You better bet he has like the skin of like almost every living being draped around him and just like the bones of like someone who was once important to you, specifically you.
Yeah, specifically you.
Specifically you. It's like everything about this is just like the whole, to quote Bricky from his YouTube stuff, like if you could have a single word descriptor for the Night Lords, fear. Straight up.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is I did have another point to make with Kurz, and of course we've talked about this, him being like a dark mirror to Sanguinius, which I mean I very much agree with. Another one that I've heard too is he's also a bit of a dark mirror towards Corvus Corax because of both the
Oh
way
yeah.
that their legions kind of, they don't conduct themselves the same way, but it's a very similar operation. They're very stealth based. They're very, both Primarchs have this very strong sense of justice, but one obviously took it a horribly terrifying way, and then the other one actually took it in a sort of like freedom fighter, anti-oppression kind of way, which leads into like a lot of the themes and lessons that we can kind of glean from Conrad Kurz, which I think, again, I make a lot of jokes at Jax's expense, but Kurz is a very interesting Primarch and very interesting character, as well as his Legion, which I think is worth, looking into and discovering. And just to shout out another lore tuber, I think his name is Amber King, and he actually does like a deep dive psychological profile into like a lot of the Primarchs, and I think Curze is probably his best one. So when you're done listening to this episode, go look up Amber King on YouTube and look for his video on Curze. So that's
He's
my
just crazy.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna look at this.
yeah, it's very
Be interesting.
interesting though. Let's actually talk about the themes now about that we have going on with Curze. So the nature of justice and punishment, it's a big thing a big thing a big thing with the Night Lord's Legion. Konrad Curze's entire existence revolves around his belief in retribution and punishment. He sees himself as a harbinger of justice, punishing the guilty long before they commit crimes, and he believes that suffering is the only way to cleanse the corruption in the galaxy. This theme explores the grim nature of justice when it becomes distorted by paranoia and a relentless desire for vengeance. I just had a realization. We like to talk about Lorgar essentially won the heresy because the Imperium that we know today evolved from his writings and the Latitio Divinitatis. A lot of the Imperium's views on crime and punishment kind of harken back to how Kurz manages that. So Kurz kind of won too in that regard.
We won, boys. We did it.
Not wrong.
To all the Night Lord fans watching this video, we did it.
You got your vindication. I hope you're happy with yourself. So the other theme here we got going here is the burden of prophecy and foresight. That's another huge thing with Kurz. Kurz's visions of the future, though often accurate, torment him with the knowledge of the inevitable horrors to come. This theme examines the crushing weight of foreknowledge, where knowing the future can become a curse, driving one to madness and despair. Kurz's inability to change the future he sees makes him a tragic figure forever bound by his visions. It kind of makes me think of this question that's been asked before. It's like, would you rather be ignorant and happy, or would you rather know the truth and just be miserable the rest of your life? That was a very interesting. Kurz would be a very interesting study in that. And then the last one is corruption of ideals. Kurz was once a figure of hope and a leader who sought to bring order to the galaxy, but his brutal interpretation of justice led him down a dark path. The theme of the corruption of ideals show how noble intentions can be twisted by trauma, mental instability, and unchecked power, leading to a figure who ultimately becomes the very thing he sought to destroy. This kind of goes in with that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, like straight up. That's what this kind of rings to me. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents on these themes. So,
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. I think he's definitely a character where if he had just done a couple little things differently, I think he would have possibly even gone to the good guy's side if he had been treated
Good.
differently. His Legion, yeah, the quote unquote good guy side. Everybody's a bad guy in 40K and 30K. But like to the loyalist side, if he had had a few different things happen, but he would have had those happen real early on. So, and some of the lessons from these themes that we see here are the dangers of preemptive judgment. Kurz's belief in punishing individuals before they have even committed crimes reveals the dangers of assuming the worst in others. It teaches that preemptive justice can lead to great harm and create cycles of fear and suffering rather than resolving them. Again, it's like that show, is it Minority Report? Where
Mm-hmm.
they, yeah, where
Tom Cruise one.
they literally have, yeah, they literally like see future crimes and they go and catch the person before they do it. Spot police at work. The destructive power of unchecked trauma. Kurz's descent into madness serves as a stark reminder of the long lasting impact trauma can have on one's psyche. His inability to process the horrors he witnessed and his constant paranoia ultimately consumed him, illustrating that unchecked trauma can corrupt even the noblest of intentions. And yeah, they, again, like Plain Jane said, they just needed to go to therapy. He just needed to go to therapy and he would have been fine. The consequences of extreme ideals. Kurze's tragedy teaches the importance of balance in belief systems. His uncompromising dedication to his vision of justice, without regard for mercy or compassion, ultimately lead to his downfall. The lesson here is that rigid adherence to extreme ideals, without room for flexibility or empathy, can lead to destruction and isolation. Yeah. He died alone and sad. Don't do that because he was
Well,
vindicated.
alone in a sense with an assassin and 1,000 of his sons like surrounding the palace.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, just don't die alone and sad. Good, it's not that hard.
Die.
Like, just oh wow.
Mark's comment from the chats: died alone and sad. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Lol.
Oh man. So
Well, I think that's pretty much the end of the notes we have here, but I think Jax has a little theory he wants to kind of go over. So,
let's hear it,
I've been saying
Jax. Let's
for so
hear this
long.
monumental theory.
This will be the most Reddit inspired, just Reddit theory ever put on this podcast.
oh no.
So I'm gonna need a lot of copium and a lot of like connecting A and C without the B in the middle. So
Okay.
Konrad Curze died alone and sad, but the footage of that was stated to have stopped right before the blade touched his neck. We get one Night Lord saying he knew Kurz died, and it was very sad and tragic, and he carried off his head. But Night Lords lie, like a lot. Can we take him for his word or not? Or maybe Kurz lived. Maybe Kurz is still out there. We never got a body. We never even recovered his head. So, potential Kurz 40K model, please GW. I will buy it as soon as it releases.
I love your optimism, Jax. I really do.
I applaud
I
it.
wish I had it.
I applaud it.
Yeah.
I heard a running joke one time that says like the only two Space Marine fans who would hate their Primarch coming back are Iron Hands and Night Lords.
Yep.
Yes, if GW like decided to like make a book that dropped a hint like in somewhere in the warp, a warp demon like was about to attack this vessel, but then all of a sudden a guy with black hair and a pale face came in and took out that demon. I swear to you, the fan base will be divided so much, and it'll be amazing and great, and I will probably take it as Conrad Curze returning instead of Corvus, and I will go ballistic. Take my money, GW, make it happen.
No, that's fake news. Fake news. It's obviously going to be Cormax. He's the man. He's the great big bird demon man.
But let's entertain this thought. Let's just entertain this thought for a second. If
I'm intrigued.
Kurz does come back in the 40k setting, he can be a bat-like demon, ergo a literal Batman in 40k.
Or he could just be he could be a regular just renegade Primarch. I mean, we have two loyalists, four
Oh,
traitor now. Having just like a
he needs
renegade
to be a
Primarch just do his
Batman.
own thing would be sick.
I think
But
we
him being
broke
Batman though
Brody.
would be sick.
He's Batman.
We broke Brody.
I'm so sorry. I'm just like in my brain. He's a literal Batman. I don't know why
He's
it
man
got
bat.
me.
Oh
He's
man,
not
man.
a man bat. Oh
Oh man.
man. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
Uh,
cross that line yet.
Oh,
Maybe Mark. I just want to
Oh
really quick
man.
point out, Mark in chat said there are no female Astartes. Oh wait, I don't think I understand the context of this.
Honestly, I don't
Anyway,
want. Honestly, I don't want Conrad coming back, but we're talking about the same company that made female Astartes. There are no female Astartes. They haven't crossed that line yet, and I'm pissed.
And I'm pissed. It's the I'm pissed part that just sent me. I was like,
That
oh yeah,
does.
that's accurate.
That's what does it.
Oh man,
Okay.
beautiful.
uh,
Oh, that was great.
That was
uh,
certainly an episode, but this was a fun one. Curze is very interesting to learn about. Like I said before, although I make a lot of jokes, but he's very interesting. So just some last minute house cleaning and some random shout outs. Mark did not give me the notes on any new patrons, so we're just gonna kind of just go over that. If you want to hear about Warhammer Fantasy and Age of Sigmar and a bunch of other stuff, come on over and listen to the Grimlore podcast. We are kind of on a hiatus still with stuff going on, but hey, we have like 34 episodes out plus a bunch of stuff on our Patreon, so come check us out. Brody, the green room. Talk to us about it.
Hobby hour in the green room. So this is the green room. If you're on the chat, you can see the video. We are sitting in the green room currently, just needing to do a couple little things. I just got all the electronics set up today or last night. So I've filmed the first video that's going to be going up on the YouTube channel, and I'm just currently I was waiting for electronics to be set up so that I could start doing all the other stuff. So I am hopefully going to start editing that this week and get it out next week or the week after. So we'll see how it all goes depending on the long weekend, because in Canada we have the long weekend coming up this week. So
Woo!
yeah.
And
So, but yeah, hobby hour in the green room. That's on every platform besides X, because I don't do Twitter.
it's okay, I don't either. So,
It's a,
but
it's a hellscape of a freaking social media site.
the less said about that, the
I'm finally
better.
old enough for Twitter.
There you go.
If you have to
Oh,
have an age
geez.
restriction on Twitter, then you know there's an issue. But speaking of
Right.
speaking of age, as we mentioned in the beginning, and for any of you that are just catching us here at the end, Jax here has recently celebrated a birthday, so let's give one nice round of applause to Jax. Wish him a happy
Woo!
birthday.
Happy birthday, Mr. Curse.
Beautiful.
And I'll say it in the
Words.
words of one of my old friends from college: Merry Birthmas.
Merry
Um,
Christmas. Love it.
this is the best birthday present I could have asked for. Just talking about Curze.
Love it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, now we need you on for the next two Night Lords episodes. So better show up. I'm going to be
You'll
really
see.
upset if you don't. Alrighty. I think we're all good to go. So have a good night, everyone, and hopefully the Batman won't come flay you.